Judge's startling decision exposed. Black man's incredible journey as lead prosecutor unveiled. Marcus Johnson paced the small, cluttered office that served as the hub of his new role as lead prosecutor in Willow Creek. The walls, once merely bearers of diplomas and case achievements, now felt like a confining cage, closing in on him with every breath he took. With the weight of the community, and whispers of doubt looming, he felt the pulse of apprehension reverberate through his veins. This case, the robbery that took the life of a cherished local business owner, was more than just another trial. It was a trial by fire for everything he represented. His fingers nervously traced the edge of a case file on his desk, the photographs of the victim haunting him. Was he ready to carry the legacy of his family, weighed down with memories of his uncle's wrongful conviction? The anxiety settled in. His mind raced with possibilities. What if he failed? What if he became another statistic, another reminder to those who thought he didn't belong? Steeling himself, he recalled his mother's unwavering lessons of hard work and resilience. Would she be proud, or would her heart break again? He had hushed his fears, but they crept forward like shadows, deeper and darker. Have I chased the dream for all the wrong reasons? The swirling confusion tightened his chest, and he clenched his fists, feeling his pulse quicken. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The pressure built palpably, each expectation standing sentinel, watching for any misstep. Tomorrow he would face the judge, an unexpected ally in their fight for justice, but a wild card nonetheless. It pained Marcus to think that the very person meant to ensure fairness might wield biases against him. What truths lay buried beneath the veneer of professionalism? How would he counter a mind already made up? The thought paralyzed him. In a flash, an unsettling memory invaded, the haunting image of his mother, as she wept over his uncle's conviction, a grief so palpable it echoed through his very core. Was this his chance to finally right a historical wrong, or would he only face judgment himself for daring to change the narrative? The fear of failing those who needed him rose to a crescendo, his inner turmoil exploding beneath an external facade of composure. He was fighting not just for a verdict but for recognition of dignity, identity, history. Each hour felt like an eternity, as he delved deeper into case preparations, balancing on the precipice of rebellion against a biased system. With only a few days until trial, tension had permeated every interaction and phone call, snaking through his psyche, demanding he confront uncomfortable truths. As he prepared to lay down his argument, his fingers trembled beneath the weight of his passion for justice. The courtroom felt like a ticking time bomb, every emotion swirling in a maelstrom of desperation and determination. As he headed out of the office that night, Marcus looked back, his silhouette framed by the dim light. Tomorrow would bring the ultimate test, one that could redefine everything he'd fought for. He could either stand firm against those who would oppose him or back down, opting for safety and silence. An uneasy decision loomed, and it gnawed at him. Would he dare disrupt the status quo, or would he conform to the very chains he aspired to break? The answer hung just out of reach, as uncertain as the shadows that now danced around him. The sun rose over Willow Creek, casting a pale light that illuminated the courthouse, the fortress of justice that seemed to loom larger than ever in Marcus's eyes. As he walked toward the entrance, each step felt heavy with dread and hope, an intoxicating blend that ignited determination within him. Today would mark a defining crossroads not only in the case but in his journey to redefine himself. He scanned the bustling crowd forming outside the courthouse, feeling the palpable tension that simmered beneath their murmurs. Was he prepared to shoulder this weight? Doubt clung to him like a shadow, whispering that he was intruding in a world he had long observed from a distance. But as he stepped through the grand doors and into the halls of justice, a surge of clarity pierced through the noise. He was not just Marcus Johnson, he was a symbol of resilience, embodying the drumming heartbeat of hope. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was electric. The judge presided, a figure renowned for sharp intellect but equally known for rigid biases that crept silently into judicial decisions. As he took his seat at the prosecution table, Marcus adjusted his tie, a simple act that grounded him, reminding him of his lineage and purpose. Today, he would unravel the truth buried beneath the surface of a system that had long favored silence over justice. He pulled his thoughts together, committing to the strategy he had meticulously crafted in sleepless nights. With each witness the defense called forward, each narrative woven to exonerate their client, Marcus faced the challenge head-on, drawing strength from the experiences that had molded him. He let his gut instincts guide him as he prepared to confront the slippery narratives, knowing they held the power to minister to the jury's biases if he faltered. The first witness was a friend of the victim, their testimony a painful reminder of what was lost. Swallowing the growing lump in his throat, Marcus leaned in, listening intently. As they spoke, he questioned not just their words but the underlying sentiment, seeking the tender truth caught in the crossfire of loss and injustice. When it was his turn to question, Marcus confronted them with subtle precision, navigating a path that led them to the raw heart of their grief. Each answer threaded into the larger narrative. He was constructing a narrative that demanded the jury's attention. With the first day drawing to a close, Marcus retreated to his office, the cacophony of voices still swirling in his mind. He had survived, but had he truly made an impact? The trial was merely beginning, and the sense of urgency grew with every tick of the clock. Could he tap into something deeper than evidence or testimonials, a passion rooted in the very fabric of who he was? As the days progressed, the internal battle tightened its grip. Each day in court exposed not only the actions of the defense but his own sense of leadership. He began to find a rhythm, a groove he had only ever dreamed of playing in. But along with that rhythm came haunting realizations, moments where doubt crept uninvited, and he began questioning whether he was the right man for this battle. Did he have the right tools to dismantle systemic biases? His vulnerability became his ally. Admitting doubt allowed him to harness the raw power of his narrative, transforming trepidation into fuel. And with each argument skillfully constructed, he could feel the former chains loosening, if only slightly. He was crafting a vision, a victory not only for the victim but for himself. He was not just a prosecutor, he was now an advocate. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the trial approached its climax. On the brink of a breakthrough, the judge's unexpected gaze caught his. For a moment, uncertainty pierced Marcus's confidence. The verdict hinged not only on what had been said but on his ability to connect with the jury's humanity. Could he carry the memories of victims past and reshape the outcome? He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment swell within him. The next day would determine everything. The struggle, the fears, the demand for justice would collide in a wrenching crescendo. As he closed his eyes and prepared for the challenge that lay ahead, he understood that the time had come to face his most profound test. Would he rise to meet it or falter at the finish line, a fraction of a whisper longing to be a shout for change? In the morning light, Marcus committed to his path with a resolve he had never known. The trial would confront not just the defendant, but everything that defined him. The moment of truth was on the horizon, echoing with the unspoken possibilities of both victory and defeat. The next morning brought an oppressive weight that settled on Marcus's shoulders as the sun filtered through the blinds, casting striped shadows across his office. He stared at the case files spread out on his desk, their stark white pages confronting him with the lives they represented. The clock as ticking felt like a metronome, each second a reminder of the impending trial's climax. Today, the moment he had summoned from the depths of his being would finally reveal itself. He arrived at the courthouse, heart pounding in anticipation. The air thickened with tension as he walked past the crowd of spectators, hope palpable in their eager whispers. With each step toward the courtroom, doubts looped in his mind. Would his message resonate with the jury? Was he prepared to bridge the gap between statistics and the raw human experiences that lived behind them? Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere crackled like a live wire. He took his seat, casting a sideways glance at the defense team. Their confidence seemed almost maddeningly serene, but that only deepened his resolve. The judge, a stern figure with a reputation for unpredictable rulings, entered the room, and the gavel struck like thunder. Silence enveloped them all. The day unfolded in a series of witness testimonies. Each story took Marcus deeper into the convictions he had nurtured. The emotional weight flowed as he engaged with the witnesses, drawing them out meticulously, eliciting truths so raw that the jury could hardly ignore them. Each response he extracted felt like forging steel, the cumulative effect building a case not just for justice but for understanding the human condition itself. Midway through the second witness, a sharp voice cut through the silence. The judge had a question. "Mr. Johnson, can you please clarify how this testimony is directly related to the charges at hand?" The directness pinned Marcus in place for the briefest moment. But instead of faltering, he leaned into the challenge. "Your Honor," he began, voice steady, "this testimony illustrates the profound emotional impact of the crime on the community. It's not just about the facts, it's about the lives stitched together in grief. To understand the crime, we must understand the human cost." The judge raised an eyebrow, but Marcus sensed a shift in the room, a readiness to engage with the humanity of the situation. With every argument he constructed, his confidence surged. The moments of doubt he battled were morphing into clarity, sparking conviction in his heart. He was no longer just a prosecutor, he was a catalyst for change, wielding truth like a sword. The fear of inadequacy he once grappled with was being replaced by a recognition of his growing power. As he completed the questioning of the last witness, he felt an awakening within himself, an empowerment he had never imagined possible. He was connecting not only with the jury but with his own emerging identity. The courtroom transformed into a stage upon which his trajectory as a professional and an individual began to materialize. But just when he began to revel in this newfound strength, the judge delivered a sudden and unexpected ruling, one that felt like a punch to the gut. "This testimony is straying from its relevance. I am dismissing it." The words hung heavy in the space, a slap that reverberated through Marcus, planting seeds of doubt once more. Marcus swallowed hard. This wasn't just a legal setback, it threatened to unravel every sentiment he had strived to instill in the jury. The silence following the judge's ruling amplified his internal turmoil. Would he find a way to steer the tide back in his favor? With determination boiling beneath the surface, he rose from his seat, ready to confront this new challenge with the vigor of reinvention. He understood now that every ruling and every word held weight. It was within these moments of crisis that character was forged. He would rise to this occasion. But deeper inside, a voice whispered darkly, could he honestly turn this setback into a stepping stone? The question hung in the air. As he prepared for a potential confrontation with the judge, a calculated risk that could either restore his trajectory or lead him to an even darker abyss. This was the real trial, not just the one unfolding in the courtroom. Would he have the courage to confront the judge and defend not only the case but his emerging identity? Marcus clenched his fists at his sides, the corners of his palms digging into his skin like anchors to the moment. The judge's gavel had come down, and with it, a ripple of disbelief danced through the courtroom. He could feel the weight of the jury's gaze, some curious, some skeptical. They were there, witnessing not just a trial but his struggle as a burgeoning legal warrior caught in a tempest of doubt and expectation. The moment stretched like an elastic band, taut and trembling. With a deep breath, he squared his shoulders, steeling himself for the confrontation ahead. The judge's authority was absolute, and challenging it could have far-reaching consequences, but Marcus's resolve had solidified into determination. His mind raced through the implications of his actions. He wasn't merely refuting a ruling, he was defending the very essence of his argument, the human lives so closely intertwined with the case. "Your Honor," he said, voice measured but passionate, "I must respectfully ask for a moment." The judge's surprised look sparked an ember of focus within him. "If I may be permitted to clarify how this testimony directly relates to the case." The judge frowned but nodded curtly, his curiosity piqued. The courtroom fell into a hushed silence, all eyes riveted on Marcus as he delved into his argument. He connected the testimony to real-life implications, weaving stories of the victims and their families back into the fabric of the legal narrative. Words poured from him, fueled by conviction. Every statistic he'd once relied on felt insufficient now, a pale contrast to the vibrant stories echoing of lives shattered and hopes extinguished. Reclaiming the dismissed testimony was pivotal, and he spoke with a fervor that surprised even himself. Each sentence was a step forward, reclaiming not just the lost testimony, but every ounce of power he'd sensed in that courtroom. It was no longer just about winning a case. It was about instilling a sense of justice. The judge listened, expression inscrutable, but Marcus could see a subtle shift in his demeanor. He was engaged, albeit cautiously. Encouraged, Marcus pressed on, constructing arguments not only from a legal standpoint but from a moral one. Every word felt like a brick laid in support of a structure he was only beginning to see the future of his conviction, his identity as a prosecutor. After what felt like a lifetime, the judge finally spoke, his voice cutting through the tension. "Mr. Johnson," he said, "while it is my duty to maintain the integrity of this courtroom, I will allow you a few minutes to address how this testimony." Before he could finish, a jolt of adrenaline surged through Marcus. The risk of humiliation had traded places with a surge of hope. He grasped the opportunity, but even amid the escalating excitement, a quiet voice nagged within him. Was this merely a momentary reprieve? Or had he struck a chord that could reverberate further, perhaps altering the entire course of the trial and with it, his journey? As he navigated the delicate terrain of his argument, challenging the judge's limitations while managing the courtroom's dynamics, every instinct stirred within him. This was not just about the immediate ruling, it was about the evolution of a prosecutor shaped by adversity. Each decision, every calculated risk he took, was a step toward defining the lawyer he aspired to be. With adrenaline still coursing through him, Marcus finished his impassioned plea, pulse racing but mind sharp. Silence reigned. Had he turned the tide? Yet, even in this moment of potential triumph, the flicker of uncertainty lingered, hinting at the consequences that might unfold. The ultimate question remained: would the judge affirm his argument, strengthening his burgeoning identity, or would he face harsh disapproval, ushering in another season of doubt and fear? As the judge deliberated, the moment grew heavy, weighed down by every unsaid word and unmade choice brimming with consequences. Would this moment breathe life into Marcus's transformation, or would it signal another setback? Despite the tension gripping him, Marcus understood that he had made a pivotal leap forward, not just in the courtroom but within himself. But where would that leap land him? The answer lay just beyond the judge's next ruling, ready to either unleash liberation or push him deeper into the labyrinth of his professional identity. The judge's eyes narrowed slightly as he leaned back in his chair, weighing the gravity of Marcus's impassioned plea. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, the tension palpable. Marcus remained in a state of heightened awareness, noting every twitch and frown on the jury's faces. He knew he had gripped their attention. The next moment would dictate whether that grip would tighten or slip away entirely. Finally, the judge cleared his throat. "Mr. Johnson, I caution you, the stories you bring must align with the law, but I acknowledge the importance of your narrative. Let us not forget the human aspect of justice." A wave of relief washed over Marcus, igniting a small spark of hope. He had been heard, at least partly, yet the stakes remained high. Would the judge allow the testimony to stand or dismiss it once more? As the judge summoned the witness back to the stand, Marcus felt renewed purpose igniting within him. This opportunity wasn't just about the case. It was a chance to redefine his role in the system. The prosecutor's office had felt like a gilded cage, adorned with the prestige of the profession yet constraining in its rigidity. Today, he sensed the possibility of breaking down those barriers, starting with the truth tucked away behind legal jargon and formalities. That he paced on the edges of the courtroom in his mind, strategizing his next steps. The witness was called, and as she took the stand, Marcus prepared himself to extract every ounce of emotion and truth buried in her testimony. He envisioned himself peeling back layers, revealing the raw, unfiltered reality of her experiences. "Can you tell the jury about the events leading up to that tragic day?" he asked gently, grounding his inquiry in compassion and authenticity. The witness hesitated, glancing nervously at the jury before locking eyes with Marcus. That fleeting moment of hesitation transformed into a cascade of words as she summoned her strength, recounting her story with trembling conviction. Every pause echoed a life lost. Every tear mirrored countless dreams shattered. Marcus listened intently, every detail etched into his mind. This was no longer just about gathering evidence. It was about crafting an experience that engaged the jury's empathy. He had once considered himself more of a tactician, focusing on courtroom theatrics rather than embracing the emotional weight of the stories behind the legalese. Yet this wasn't just a performance, it was a revelation. As the witness spoke, Marcus felt a shift within himself. The fear that had nagged at him, the self-doubt that often overshadowed his capabilities, began to crumble. He realized that he was not merely prosecuting a case. He was part of a larger narrative, one that required him to embrace vulnerability along with strength. Each question he crafted became more than a step towards conviction. It became a testament to the resilience he found in the depths of his own journey. He wasn't just up against an opposing counsel or the judge's skepticism, he was up against his own insecurities, and with each bit of courage he dismantled them piece by piece. When the witness concluded her testimony, Marcus felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. He had successfully conveyed not only facts but profound human truths that resonated deeply. The courtroom, once a cold arena of judgment, had transformed into a vessel of storytelling, painting a more holistic picture of justice. Yet, as he registered the quiet murmur among the jurors and the judge's contemplative expression, the underlying tension remained. Had he truly shifted their perspectives? Would they appreciate the importance of humanity intertwined with legal protocol? In that moment, the journey from prosecutor to advocate crystallized for him. But as his confidence grew, so did the awareness that his struggles were far from over. Within the echoes of the courtroom's silence lingered another question, one that threatened to shatter the newfound clarity he had just established. How far would he go to reclaim the narrative of justice? Determined to delve deeper, Marcus knew that the next confrontation loomed ahead, one that would require him to confront not only his past fears but also the layers of ethics enveloping the system he vowed to reform. Would he be able to champion the truth against intimidating forces? Or would he falter when it mattered most? The moment felt suspended in time, as silence enveloped Marcus, thick with anticipation. He instinctively sensed that his journey into the depths of the legal system would soon push him to face not just the external challenges, but also the complex web of ethical dilemmas threatening to ensnare him. With the testimony having shone a light into murky waters, he felt a new resolve welling up inside him, a commitment to pursue the truth come what may. He stepped back from the courtroom drama for a heartbeat, reflecting internally on what lay ahead. Each passing moment would not only influence the trial but would test the core of who he was becoming. Beyond the role of a prosecutor, he envisioned himself as an advocate for those lost in the system's complexities, finding strength in the very narratives he had once used merely as tools. As the judge began to review the admissibility of the evidence presented, Marcus's thoughts roamed. The counterarguments from the opposing counsel lurked like shadows, ready to pounce at any moment. This was no longer about winning a trial. It represented a burgeoning revolution within himself, one that demanded he embrace every ounce of his emotional intelligence and legal acumen. He noted the prosecutor's polished demeanor, the practiced confidence with which she opposed him, yet he sensed a crack in her poise. It was as if her arguments were built on a foundation of laws, but stripped bare, they lacked the humanity he had begun to champion. This realization invigorated him, sharpening his focus. He needed to press on. He needed to affirm that justice was not merely procedural but deeply personal. As the courtroom's silence folded into a contemplative murmur, he gathered his thoughts, strategizing his next move. He would not retreat into the safety of legal jargon. Instead, he would meet the prosecutor's polished exterior with raw authenticity that could not be easily dismissed. He envisioned himself as a lighthouse, illuminating the often overlooked stories hidden beneath the surface of cold facts. With an unexpected wave of determination washing over him, Marcus knew precisely how to approach the next phase. He would scale the heights of emotional narrative to dismantle the rigid structure the other side clung to. He asked himself how beneficially revelatory he could be. After all, wasn't it the human side of the law that would resonate most? As the judge ruled the previous testimony admissible, allowing it to stand on the record, Murmurs of uncertainty rippled through the court. Marcus seized the moment, standing before the jury, his heart racing but steadying itself against the challenges ahead. He was no longer just a prosecutor. He was a vessel, a conduit through which stories flowed, revealing the true face of justice. His next witness was a pivotal character in the unfolding saga, and in preparation, he pressed himself to identify the emotional toll her experience had taken. He strategized how to frame her narrative, aiming to capture not just the incident in question but also the profound implications it held on lives beyond the courtroom. Yet as thoughts swirled and the spotlight dimmed, Marcus felt a pulse of doubt worming its way into his resolve. Would exposing the fragile truth fracture the very case he was determined to build? The sheer weight of his aspirations collided with the stark reality of navigating a system that often valued conviction over compassion. Both exhilaration and trepidation gripped his chest. If he fully committed to authenticity, would it steal away his professional standing? With each decision, he found himself at a crossroads, one that judged the duality of his ambition against the ethical responsibility that came with the power he wielded. The precipice of transformation loomed just ahead, but would he take that leap? The next witness loomed on the horizon, but the question was no longer just about her testimony. The moment had come. He had to face not only the adversaries on the other side but also the inner conflict that threatened to define his journey. The door swung open for the new witness. Marcus stood resolute, emotions churning within him, acutely aware that this was just the beginning of a deeper confrontation, one against his own fears, doubts, and perhaps his foundational beliefs about justice itself. How far could he push his truth? The witness stepped forward, her face lined with a weariness that spoke volumes. Marcus could see the shadows of trauma etched into her features, elements of her past that had led her to this pivotal moment. He took a deep breath, tuning out the ambient noise of the courtroom. This was not just a performance. Lives were hanging in the balance. He needed to navigate this delicate emotional landscape with finesse. "Thank you for agreeing to testify today," he began, his voice steady but infused with compassion. "Can you share with the jury what happened on that night?" As she recounted her story, Marcus found himself drawn into her narrative. Each detail unfolded like petals on a flower, revealing the painful truths hidden beneath the surface. He had studied her testimony carefully, but hearing it in her own words struck him differently. This wasn't just evidence. It was a life lived, marked by fear and resilience. He watched her closely, noting the tremor in her voice, the way her eyes darted as she recalled the horror of that night. It pierced him. He felt the weight of her experience merging with his own moral fight for justice. The courtroom's hushed atmosphere made her story palpable, wrapping the jurors in a cocoon of empathy. Here was the moment to seize. He couldn't let it slip away. "Could you describe how that event has affected your daily life?" Marcus asked, leaning forward slightly, drawing the jury in. This was a critical segue. He needed the jurors to see the full breadth of her reality, not just the isolated incident. Her response was raw, and Marcus felt an initial hesitation to reveal the extent of her suffering for fear of jeopardizing the case. Yet, he knew that vulnerability could expose the hard truths often obscured in legality. He had to weigh the need for emotional resonance against the risk it posed. Silence gripped the room as the witness struggled to maintain composure. Seeing her vulnerability, something within Marcus flipped. A newfound determination surged forth. He realized he had a choice: to elevate her voice or to shrink back into the protective veneer of procedural language. The thought of doing the latter made his insides clench. "Your Honor, if it pleases the court," he began, feeling the eyes of everyone in the room locking onto him, "I believe the witness should be allowed to express how this has impacted her life, not just in tangible ways but emotionally and spiritually." The judge raised an eyebrow, considering the request. Marcus steeled his resolve, even as a wave of anxiety crashed over him. Would the judge allow it? Was this daring step a miscalculation? The moment felt monumental. Suddenly, the air felt electric with anticipation. Finally, after a ponderous pause, the judge nodded, granting permission. Relief washed over Marcus, igniting an enthusiasm within him. With a supportive nod to the witness, he encouraged her to continue. As she spoke, her words became a river of emotion, flowing with stories that encapsulated loss, solace, and hope. Each struggle she recounted created ripples that resonated deeply in the room, transforming individual narratives into an undeniable call for compassion. Yet, amidst the outpouring of emotion, Marcus confronted his own rising tension. Was he being too honest, pushing boundaries that should remain intact? He felt the tightrope of legal and ethical obligations stretching beneath him. This moment could redefine everything he stood for: his own understanding of justice. As he processed her story, a thought began to crystallize in Marcus's mind. What if pushing for humanity in the law wasn't a detour from professionalism, but rather its essence? The realization was both liberating and terrifying. How far could he push this autonomy? With newfound clarity, he recognized the choice laid bare before him. The case's balance teetered again, but it was his own perspective that was on the verge of a breakthrough. He would not let fear strangle his quest for truth; he would nourish it instead. And as the witness's emotional representation settled in the atmosphere, Marcus understood that whatever the next steps entailed, he had already begun to redefine the parameters of his role, not simply as a prosecutor but as an advocate for transparency and authenticity. But as he turned to face the jury, a chilling thought gripped him with uncertainty. What if his journey toward truth ultimately placed him in the line of fire? As the murmurs of jury deliberation began to build, Marcus braced himself for what would come next, acutely aware that his resolve would face its greatest test. Would he choose to prioritize justice over safety, or would the realities of the legal arena snuff out his growing flame of compassion? As the deliberation began, the anticipation in the courtroom was palpable, but the weight on Marcus's shoulders felt heavier than ever. He leaned against the worn wooden rail of the prosecutor's table, lost in a spiral of thoughts. What had started as an ordinary trial had rapidly turned into a defining moment in his career, one that would force him to confront fundamental questions about his profession and his principles. His eyes wandered to the jury, their faces unreadable. Each juror was a keeper of his fate, their expressions an impenetrable barrier to the emotional turmoil churning within him. Marcus recalled the witness's eyes. They had shimmered with tears and truth, pleading for justice as she bared her soul. He had felt a bond form across the courtroom, one woven from shared humanity. In that surging connection, Marcus found both inspiration and fear. What if he'd strayed too far from the cold principles of law? He had willingly deviated from the script to create an authentic narrative, but he questioned whether it had been an ultimate truth or merely a reckless improvisation. Legalities often dictated decisions, but emotions shaped lives. Had he struck the right balance? Pacing slowly before the jury box, Marcus suffused a moment of introspection with each measured footfall. He scrutinized the gargantuan task at hand: how to align his own emerging ethics with the rigid structure of the law. For the first time, the line between right and wrong felt blurred. He hesitated to admit it, but compassion was shifting his perspective. Did the law reign in justice, or did it restrict fairness? The answer eluded him. The judge's gavel struck sharply, snapping him from spiraling thoughts. "The jury has reached a verdict," the judge announced, his voice soldierly and authoritative. The air thickened, the atmosphere tangibly electric. Every heartbeat reverberated within Marcus, drowning out the ambient sounds of the courtroom. What if they didn't understand? What if they could not appreciate the nuances he had fought to bring forth? He could feel the eyes of his colleagues resting on him, a mix of support and skepticism. They had always trained him to remain steadfast, to uphold the law without contamination. But here he was, unsettled and questioning. Could he advocate for justice if it meant risking ostracism among his peers? Or worse, could he find himself facing the very legal repercussions he sought to eliminate? The jury foreman rose, and for a moment, time felt suspended. "We, the jury, find the defendant," he paused, the weight of his words captain over the room. Marcus's heart thudded fiercely. The verdict was not just a verdict, but a reflection of his choices, his struggle, and his metamorphosis into a true advocate. Whatever the outcome, he had already ventured beyond the rigid definitions he once held. He was evolving, embracing a new realm of potential, one that demanded authenticity over mere adherence to legalism. Then it struck him a revelation as jolting as the gavel's crack. What if this trial was merely a prelude? A signal that his journey was poised to stretch far beyond the courtroom. His role demanded not just a commitment to the law, but to the beings affected by it. Was it too late to redefine himself, to commit to reforming the narrative, becoming a part of something larger than his own legal aspirations? As the foreman delivered the verdict, it echoed in Marcus's ears not merely as a decision concerning one case, but an introduction to navigating a personal evolution that would challenge every belief he once held. What awaited him beyond this moment risked reshaping not only his career but also his fundamental understanding of what it meant to truly serve justice. With the final hammer of judgment ringing in the air, Marcus felt the exhilarating tension of choice surge within him. The time had come to face the truth of his own convictions, both for himself and for those he sought to protect. But as realization dawned, another question simmered beneath the surface. If he accepted his newfound path, who would stand with him against the inevitable pushback from those entrenched in the old ways? As the sound of the gavel faded, Marcus stood motionless, grappling with the implications of the verdict as it swirled through the courtroom like smoke. Mixed emotions clawed at him: relief, apprehension, and a persistent urge to weep for everything that had unfolded. The jury's decision would echo in the halls of justice, but he felt an unsettling chasm between that outcome and the essence of his understanding of the law. Marcus, a voice pulled him from his reverie. It was Lila, his mentor and a senior partner at the firm. Her brow creased with concern as she approached him. "You're not yourself. Your focus was missing today." He was acutely aware that Lila meant for that concern to be helpful, but it felt like a spotlight on his internal chaos. "I know," he murmured, turning his gaze back to the jury box where the jurors were gathering their belongings. Their faces, previously so distant, now seemed to pulse with stories of their own. "Something has changed in me, Lila. I can't ignore it anymore." She scrutinized him, her expression unreadable. "You can't let one trial redefine your entire career. The law is a framework you must uphold." Her words stung, igniting Marcus's discontent. "But is it fair, Lila? I sacrificed some of the framework today to bring out truth, humanity. I don't know if that's even right, but it felt necessary." "You need to navigate your emotions wisely," she cautioned, but he sensed her hesitation, as if she, too, grappled with the tension of what had transpired. As they exited the courtroom, Marcus's steps quickened, fueled by a newfound determination. That verdict was a culmination, not an end. It opened doors he had never considered, questions he was now compelled to answer for himself. Who was he as a prosecutor? What did justice really mean in the lives of those he represented? The trials lured him into a realization: he had to step outside his comfort zone, expanding his role from mere prosecutor to advocate who would challenge the existing structures of law and justice. The next days swirled by in a blur. Meetings with colleagues felt hollow. Conversations turned into banal exchanges in which he felt he could hardly participate. On one particularly mundane afternoon, Marcus stumbled upon a project proposal gathering dust in a corner of the office, a community outreach initiative aimed at bridging the gap between the legal system and marginalized neighborhoods. His heart raced at the thought of getting involved. This wasn't just a project. It could be a way to connect the tenets of law with real lives in a tangible, impactful way. If he could craft a program that demystified the legal process for those who felt unheard, his role might not just be to prosecute but also to educate, to empower. It was a chance to dismantle the impenetrable barriers he'd felt separating him from the very populace he sought to aid. But lurking in that excitement was a heavy reality: his superiors would question his motives, just as Lila had. They would undoubtedly criticize any shifts he dared to pursue as unprofessional or reckless. Could he shoulder that backlash? As he analyzed his own hesitations, he recognized a deeper truth. If he was to break free from the chains of traditionalism, it would come with profound resistance, internal and external. Determined to act on this revelation, he began drafting ideas for the initiative late at night, fueled by the adrenaline of a commitment he had never known. The thoughts flowed like water: curriculum plans, workshops, and outreach strategies danced across his pages. Each word felt liberating, each sentence a declaration of his intent. Just as he pressed send on the proposal to the board, a sharp knock echoed through his office. Marcus's heart sunk. "Marcus, we need to talk." It was Lila again, but this time her urgency was palpable. "What now?" he asked, half dreading the words that would surely come. "It's about the trial, and something that could affect your future," she said, an undercurrent of concern threading through her voice. Something was looming on the horizon, and Marcus feared what it might mean for the path he was beginning to carve out. His choices were no longer just about the law, they would impact every facet of his newly conceived identity. In that moment, he understood the stakes had risen dramatically. The journey toward defining justice on his own terms was only just beginning, and it was about to become far more complicated than he had ever anticipated. Would he have the resolve to stand firm against whatever challenge awaited him, or risk losing the very evolution he sought? The courtroom lay still, the echoes of the judge's gavel fading like the last embers of a dying fire. Marcus Johnson stood tall, heart racing, sensing a shift not just in the case, but within his very marrow. Today was the culmination of a journey riddled with uncertainty. But now, standing between the evidence and the jury, he felt something akin to liberation. The verdict, delivered with a measured solemnity, resounded through the air. Not guilty. A wave of collective emotion surged in the room, though his sense of triumph was tempered by the profound realization that the struggle for justice was only just beginning. As he absorbed the words, a welling of pride surged within him, a self-affirmation of purpose achieved, yet alongside it flowed a reminder of how far he had come and where he still needed to go. In the days following the trial, Marcus moved through life with a newfound confidence that shifted the perception others held of him. No longer confined in a cage, he emerged as a lead figure, both potent and grounded, reshaping what it meant to wield the law. His mentor, Lila, watched and noted the palpable change. "You've found your voice, Marcus," she said one afternoon. "But remember, this is just the beginning. You've taken a bold step, but others will expect you to uphold tradition." Her words echoed in his mind, but he found strength in the internal battles he defaced. Previously tormented by doubts and fears, he now recognized them as stepping stones toward clarity and conviction. With the support of his colleagues, he began formally organizing the community outreach initiative he had envisioned during the chaos of the trial. His empathy transformed into actionable plans, workshops designed to demystify the legal system, bridging the gap between communities and the law. Each session he facilitated became a crucible for social change, not only enlightening those disenfranchised by the system, but reaffirming his place within it. His achievements were measurable, not found only in titles or verdicts, but in the faces of those who left his workshops with renewed hope, equipped with knowledge that had previously felt out of reach. Marcus earned respect not just in the courtroom, but within his community. Recognition flooded in as neighborhood leaders began to invite him to speak at events, voicing appreciation for his commitment to social justice. With each word shared, a fragment of his past, of his uncle's wrongful conviction, was reconstructed into a new legacy, one of empowerment and advocacy. He stood before gatherings, recalling not just the pain of loss, but the beauty of transformation and the potential of every individual when armed with the right tools. It was during one of these gatherings that Marcus felt something shift profoundly within him. An elderly woman approached him, eyes shimmering with gratitude. "You've given us hope where there was none, son," she said, her voice as soothing as a balm. In that moment, he realized he had transcended his previous fears. He had conquered not just his role as a prosecutor, but had emerged as a beacon for those who needed one. The culmination of his internal transformation and external achievements proved palpable when the community honored his work with a small ceremony, designating him a champion of justice. As he stood before an applauding crowd, Marcus understood that he had finally begun to honor his mother's teachings. He was not merely fulfilling a role within a flawed system, he was reshaping it, forging a path of understanding and integrity through which others could find their way. Reflecting on the twists and turns of his journey, he grasped the weight and beauty of having allyship, internal and external, and how it had refined his purpose. He had moved from a place of self-doubt to one of solid identity. Marcus was no longer just a name in a courtroom. He had become the voice of resilience inspired by the very fabric of the community he served. As he stepped away from the podium, he felt a rush of exhilaration. Achieving this personal milestone solidified his presence in the professional landscape, a clear shift from survival to thriving. He had proved to himself that he could be more than a prosecutor. He could be a change maker. Filled with a sense of duty to continue this transformative work, Marcus made the conscious decision to become a mentor, reaching out to young, aspiring lawyers from underrepresented backgrounds. He would share not only the triumphs, but also the confounding moments of doubt, teaching them that true justice required more than conviction. It required empathy, tenacity, and above all, courage to redefine the narrative. Marcus Johnson was not just a new name in the lead prosecutor's role. He was a symbol of enduring hope, a testament to individual growth and achievement, a story worth sharing, worth living. Now, dear viewers, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.